After church today, I had much time to be with my thoughts. I remember the service with the pastor. He was worried that he may not be able to teach his congregation the beliefs that he so dearly follows. And I thought to myself, true, he may have problems if the general public doesn't like his opinion. Then I thought further and I said, in this day and age, we don't even have the freedom to speak our own mind in certain circumstances because it might offend someone. And I thought, what if I, being a public servant, could solve that problem? And I thought, our Constitution is great. But what if we made a few amendments to give everyone else the right to have their own freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the ability to exercise their own will? And I thought, I will ponder this further. And maybe, just maybe, we can make it better for everyone.
Welcome to the second episode in this special series about the U.S. Constitution. My name is Michael. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and share with everyone who likes this type of show. In this episode, I will be talking about the First Amendment of the Constitution. Briefly, it states the following: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of the speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for the redress of grievances. Okay? Now, what does that mean today? Well, it means that the government may not jail, fine, or impose civil liability on people or organizations based on what they say or write, except in exceptional circumstances, which I will cover a little bit later. Now, I have covered some of this in previous episodes of Michael's Corner, most notably in episode 12, Religion, Beginning or End, where I discussed bringing religion back into government, schools, and public offices. This, by the way, is covered under the First Amendment and under Article 6 of the Constitution, though it is not explicitly mentioned in the First Amendment. Now, since I have talked about religion, I'm not going to focus on that in this particular episode. I will focus on the rest of what the First Amendment stands for. Now, one thing of note, the First Amendment does not protect against private individuals or organizations. Examples would be employers, private colleges, or private landowners. It only protects against the government. Bear that in mind. Also of note, there are three situations where, as I said earlier, where the government can constitutionally restrict speech under a less demanding standard. The first is termed low-value speech. Now, three examples to ponder as far as this one is concerned is defamation. That's a big one. Included in this are false statements that damage a person's reputation, which can lead to civil liability and even criminal punishment. This is especially true if the speaker deliberately lied or said things that they knew were likely false. Another example of this one is true threats. For example, threats to commit a crime like, "I will kill you if you don't give me all your money." And a final example for this one is fighting words, which is face-to-face personal insults that are likely to lead to immediate fight are punishable, but of note here is that it does not include political statements that offend others and provoke them to violence, for example, civil rights activists or anti-abortion protesters, okay? Others would include child pornography, obscenity, or misleading advertisements, okay? Now, the second one where the government can step in would be if the speaker has a special relationship with the government. Now, what do I mean by that? For example, The speech of a government employee and of students in public schools when their speech is incomparable with their status as public officials or students. Now, another would be, this is an important one, if a government employee has access to classified information that could not be said, in public. Finally, the government can restrict speech under one more or less demanding standard, as I stated earlier, as long as it does so without regard to content of the message of the speech. Basically, it has to be neutral. This is so the government cannot favor some ideas over others. There are limits to this, but like I said, as long as it's neutral, a neutral opinion falls under the First Amendment's protection. Okay? Now, in general, this amendment covers talking, writing, but also printing, broadcasting, using the internet. This freedom of speech also applies to symbolic displays such as displaying flags, burning flags, wearing armbands, burning crosses, etc. Although, as you all know, I'm not very keen on people burning our flag. Now let me clarify that last one just a little bit more. When we talk about restricting speech, it may not be what you think. The reasoning behind the government restricting certain speech depends on the situation. Okay? Examples of this would be if it sufficiently offends employees, students, or business patrons based on race, religion, sex, sexual orientation, and the like is one way this restriction would apply. Okay? Now, another one, or our final example, I'll say, would be a speech suggesting, for example, Muslims are disloyal, display of sexually suggestive materials, sexually themed humor, sex-based job titles, and the like can also lead to lawsuits. As I have talked about in the last episode, here is where I strongly believe the amendments are what bring our Constitution into the modern world and applied to real modern world situations. That's my soapbox for the day. See you in the next section of today's episode. All right, today's question of the day. Do you think that the First Amendment adequately covers what is happening in the modern world? Where do you think it needs improvement? And finally, does it have the stamina to continue representing the freedom that makes this country great into the future? I have no questions from you guys, so on to my final thoughts for this episode. Welcome to my final thoughts. As I stated in the previous episode, the 7 articles of the Constitution have been modified many times in our 245-year history. The amendments attempt to bring the original document into the modern world, applying to real problems that plague us today. There have been many attempts to change the meaning of our Constitution over this time, but it still stands strong. This is a testament to the foresight of our 7 founding fathers that I spoke about previously. Now, today's episode was all about the First Amendment and how it applies today. Next week, I'm going to continue this special series by talking about the Second Amendment. And now, in the meantime, though, I want all of you to be safe, be careful, be open-minded, and I will see all of you in the next episode. Thanks for watching, and happy holidays, everyone.